Hey, it's your buddy Peace and Harmony with you here today. Zooming in on really how to handle and call out a covert narcissist, especially when this is a family member. I had received a poignant, moving comment from a viewer who had expressed a lot of concern and emotional pain regarding a covert narcissist son who had shut her out, essentially, and this had occurred when she confronted him on his lies and his pathology. So I want to address that in this video. I think it's very important. I also want to give a shout out to the very kind viewer who, again, I get a lot of comments about what I like, what my glasses are or my makeup, and they had asked about what kind of highlighter I use, and it's by Bare Essentials. It's like a mineral based foundation and powder highlighter. So I believe it's called Pearl, so you can check it out. So anyway, and thank you for your inquiry. I wanted to address once you have essentially hit a very painful place with a covert narcissist where you feel like you've tried to confront them on their lies. You're sick of the runaround. You're sick of the crazy making, and you can't proceed in a relationship that's based on lies. You can't lead a double life. You can't begin to you can't continue to be led along that path by a covert narcissist. It's just too painful. Life is moving too quickly nowadays. Things are too hectic. This just adds to the confusion. This just adds to the conflict. It becomes unnavigable. It becomes unbearable. And you really have to wonder, well, what do I do when it gets to that rock bottom state? How do we really bounce back? How do I open up communication, if at all? Well, number one, if you have known this person for some time, and if you're aware of some trauma in their history, in their childhood, in their background, emotional abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse that could have caused this condition. In fact, many of the forefathers of the psychoanalytic movement, especially Mr. Otto Frankl, he had studied really kind of the generation or the maturation of these narcissistic personality issues, and could they be genetic? Could they be caused by some trauma in childhood? And oftentimes, childhood needs were not met, so they then manifested or acted out in adulthood, in terms of being covert narcissists, being the very shy sort of narcissist, shutting out people, shutting down, locking up communication, lines of communication. And then the more aggressive type would become more your covert narcissist, where always looking for attention to fill that void that was so left gaping open when they were in childhood. So if you do have a covert narcissist and you really kind of still care about them and you want to confront them in a humane way, in other words, try to salvage the relationship, try to keep some sort of foundational lines, begin to talk to them maybe about something then that was occurred in their childhood, and if you are a witness to that, then let them know that you apologize that this had occurred, that this shouldn't have happened, and that this could be the cause for much of how you feel you need to act towards the family, and I care about you, and I apologize that this had happened to you. Oftentimes, someone who is extremely emotionally abused in their childhood, they never ever hear an apology from their parents. They could be abused for years, decades, since the time of infancy, and I'll go into my excuse me, my story at some point, but there becomes such a dramatic injury to the person, really, that they did nothing to create. There was no behavior. It was just their very presence that caused them to be an obstacle to this, to the abuse, where they were on the receiving end of tremendous amounts of physical and emotional, psychological abuse that has caused an aberrant, growing up for them. They didn't receive the love. They didn't receive the messages. They didn't receive the guidance. they didn't receive the affection, they didn't receive the acknowledgement, they didn't receive the communication. There was so much missing on that very foundation that it leads, into a deviant line or a very struggling sort of life for their future. So if the covert narcissist isn't, in your relationship or in your family, and you still care about them, ask them, in a very loving way, what happened to you in your childhood? I am so sorry that this happened. That shouldn't have occurred. You were raised by parents who did not know better, who could not give to you in these ways. They absolutely positively could not give what they did not have. So really it was, it was a huge atrocity and a huge loss that you must feel in your childhood growing up. And I want to try to make that up to you now, but I want to get it out. I want to get it out in the open. I want to air it out, so it won't continue to plague and fester, and you carry it on to, into our relationships, where it gets worse and worse and worse, and eventually can explode and become something very awful and something that we all regret that could have been prevented. So if you come at it with that respect, and with an apology and with acknowledgement, and and asking please for forgiveness that this all happened to you, and you shouldn't have been abused in this way. You shouldn't have been talked to in this way. You shouldn't have been hit or sexually abused in this way. You shouldn't have been talked to in this way. It was, extremely shameful. It was extremely cruel. It was nothing that you did to deserve all that sort of behavior. And, we apologize, that you had such a violent father, or that you had such, a cold mother, or a judgmental mother, or callous upbringing, or you had so many violators everywhere you turned. We apologize for that, and that is the cause. If you can help, acknowledge that and bring that in the open, then you have a chance at them acknowledging it and perhaps, really, trying to change. Because I think, really, once narcissism sets in, it's pretty difficult to change. Sometimes when people get older in their life, and, people get, old, later into their life, 60s, 70s, 80s, and they start maybe having some health issues, and then, some of the real feelings can start to come out. And you don't want to wait until the end of someone's life to, say I'm sorry, or what happened here. I mean, that, you don't want to procrastinate on that. You want to be able to open up the channels of communication. So any healing, any savaging of the relationship can be done, because what? We only get one family. We only get, so many kids. We only get, our parents, if even that. So, and if this isn't important to you, then, try to come at it from a little bit softer perspective and see if that helps you restore and salvage a little bit of the communication lines, and make contact in whatever generous way possible, either through phone calls, a nice handwritten note, flowers, a teddy bear, something. If it's a distant family member and you really want to try to really patch things up, you can try to go that little extra mile. If you're healthy and you feel like you want to reconnect with them, if that's meaningful and significant to you, then try that little angle. Peace and harmony with you here today. I hope these videos do help. Please share and please subscribe for more great tools, videos, discussion, and support.